Welcome to Lyme Time. I'm Ali from the Tick Chicks. We are all more than Lyme disease and chronic illness, and together we stand with you to overcome and rise. I'll bring you closer to the experts in cutting-edge treatments and even a few unexpected ways of healing. I'll ask the questions you want answers to regarding Lyme disease and successful ways of getting you closer to 100%. We are in this together and will not be defined by Lyme. Katie Beecher is a medical and emotional intuitive and licensed professional counselor featured by numerous media outlets, including Poosh, Miranda Kerr's Cora Organics, and Goop, who called her eerily accurate, which I love that. As part of her acclaimed readings, she creates a detailed, multi-page report and intuitive soul painting knowing only a person's name and age. She has over 30 years of experience helping people all over the world transform their lives and their health. In 1983, Katie was a severely depressed 16-year-old, riddled with anxiety and suicidal. After 4 years of trying to fight her eating disorder, she had decided that she couldn't go on. Binging and purging 3 times a day, abusing laxatives and diuretics, and living in a dysfunctional family had taken its toll. Rather than taking her life, in the spring of that year, what Katie describes as divine intervention occurred. She came home from school one day and, without telling anyone, called her family pediatrician and asked her for the name of a therapist. He referred her to Jean Sutherland, a Jungian psychologist who helped her save her life. She learned how to connect with her intuition, find self-love, and embrace her psychic and medium abilities, which she had avoided and feared. And Katie has been recovered for over 30 years and considers the eating disorder to be one of her greatest gifts. It taught her that with the intuition, self-love, and self-acceptance, we can heal from anything. During her recovery, Katie's spiritual guides told her that she would go on to help others and to write books, the first of which is called Heal from Within, a guidebook to intuitive wellness. Heal from Within is a complete guide to healing, mind, body, and spirit. Using the same exclusive techniques Katie uses during her individual readings, practical Jungian psychology, and inspirational client and personal stories, she shows people how to discover their strengths and pinpoint the physical, emotional, and spiritual root causes for their issues, while creating a lifelong, step-by-step plan to address these challenges. Valuable for clinical professionals, intuitive practitioners, as well as people wanting to improve their personal quality of life, Heal from Within helps people become their own medical and emotional intuitives, release the fear and false beliefs that are holding them back, and become their most authentic selves. Katie has a BS in biology and psychology, an MS in counseling and certification in special education, and she has been a professional watercolor artist. Katie, welcome.
Thank you. That was very long.
That was very long, but I have to get it all in there because you have so many things to tell. And what I really didn't even begin to talk about was you are a Lyme survivor yourself.
I sure am.
And so we want to get into that a little bit later. But first of all, let's kind of start from the beginning. At what point did you realize you had a special gift?
From as long back as I can remember, I remember being able to pick up on people's feelings and know things that I had no business knowing. And, my family would be like, how do you know that about that person? And just sort of feeling out of body a lot and picking up on different, sometimes negative energy, often negative energy, which wasn't very pleasant. So I always knew there was something else there. I always sort of talked to this imaginary friend, I guess. And I didn't really know what to label it. I didn't know what to call it. For a while, it was scary. And I wanted nothing to do with anything like that. When I realized I was talking to like negative entities and things. But it wasn't until I started recovering from the eating disorder that my therapist helped me realize what it was, and that it was a lot of mediumship stuff and psychic abilities, and that it was all okay and actually pretty normal.
That's incredible. So just from the very your very first memories you had
Yeah.
this ability. That is incredible. I have a confession. I'm a huge, I'm like low key obsessed, but I am a huge fan of Tyler Henry's.
Right.
And I just have, I watched his whole series, and I think you have to watch the whole series to completely understand where I'm coming from. But I've recaptured the ability to tap into that
Yay.
after I have completed that series, and I think I had forgotten about it, and I've forgotten about the ability, or not practiced it in a long
Sure.
time. And I was this oh my gosh, everybody out there is going to freak out, but I was able to like connect with somebody from the other side very recently, like about a month ago, and it just brings tears to my eyes. But it's obviously I'm not in any level close to you, but I do believe in it. I am a believer, and I believe a lot of our techniques and philosophies are very similar, even though I don't go into that next level. But I believe that our approaches are very similar. So I'm excited to talk to you.
You don't
Have you
have to
ever,
qualify it. You don't
I'm
have to
sorry?
qualify. You don't have to qualify it and say I'm not at the level you are, or anything like that, because there's nothing special about me. I've just been doing it longer, and we all have these abilities.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I encourage anybody to really get the book and begin to tap into this, and we'll go into it and you'll understand a little bit more. It's a very scary kind of concept, I think, in the beginning for people, but it can be it just can be your freedom. And
Absolutely.
it is very beautiful when it unfolds. So have you ever asked yourself why you?
Yeah, when I was again when going through my recovery stuff, I was told that this was all, for a reason, and that my one of my roles in life, we have lots of them, was to take this experience and help people realize that they can love themselves and they can accept themselves, and that by listening to intuition, they can figure out what they need and want to do in life. And so it was, by me having this kind of what seemed like a really negative thing happen when I was really young, it was kind of dramatic enough. I had a pretty dramatic eating disorder. It was dramatic enough that it kind of shocked me into realizing that I needed to make changes. And then my intuition just kept saying, you're supposed to do something with this, and help people who feel like you do realize that they don't have to.
Yeah. Very well said. I just think that a lot of pain is there for a reason. And if we can get through to the other side, it's important to sort of help people along the way. And I follow that same philosophy. So let's talk about guides first and foremost. This is so crazy. So I'm assuming I'm just going to approach it from a very,
Sure.
sort of kindergarten level questions. I'm assuming that my set of guides, my spiritual entities, are different than yours. Am I correct, or is it a universal sort of knowledge or intellect, or what's going on with our guides? How would you
Yeah.
describe it?
So what I discovered is one of the things that I was tapping into was this universal source of love and acceptance. So I think, Carl Jung described intuition as God within. And it really is this loving energy that I think we can all, universally tap into. And I think that we can all universally tap into each other's energy as well. And this, goes back through time. When I do readings, there's no linear time. It's just everything at once about the person's life. Having said that, I also recognize that I have individual guides. I don't know their names. I know that, I know certain things about them. And some are people who have been loved ones, who have passed. Others are just kind of, spirit guides in general, who they may also help other people too. I would not, that would not surprise me if they helped other people as well. But I feel like we all have our kind of individual team, and there's some overlap, and it's not really, I don't find it that important that you know who they are or that you know their names, or, it's more that you listen and tap into that and figure out why they're there and what they want you to know.
Okay. And I know that there are some guides, some spiritual gurus out there that believe in guides that are actual medical surgeons, if you will, spiritual surgeons. And I don't know what to believe. I don't sort of know what to make of that, but I do know that there are some people out there that have tapped into those types of guides and had what they call a spiritual surgery, which is actually and that they have been healed. I mean, there's been documented cases of that. What's your take on that?
Well, number one, I'm glad you brought that up because, again, I've had this experience. I think that anyone's energy that tap into, all we have to do is ask. I'm a huge fan of Carl Jung. His philosophy saved my life. And I do believe that he is one of my guides, but all I have to do is tap into it. And I think that you could do the same. So, people who channel Mary Magdalene or whatever they want to do, that's totally cool, but you can do that too. So I don't think that any of us is any more special than the other person. I think when it comes to things like claiming to heal people, doing psychic surgeries, any of that kind of stuff, I think that gets into very delicate territory because there are people who do what I do and make diagnoses. Legally and ethically, I can't do that. And so I think it gets very dicey when people make those kinds of claims, and there may be validity to them. That's fine. I just think it can get really hard and you get people's hopes up. And yeah, so my take on that is I don't make claims like that. My guides are incredibly accurate, and I hook people up with doctors and stuff like that to kind of verify the symptoms I'm getting, verify that sounds like it could be this. So and my clinical background certainly has helped with that, but I tend to take a very cautious approach when it comes to that, if that makes sense.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think it's important that we state this disclaimer here that, I'm trying to bring the experts to everyone, but they
Exactly.
obviously have to do their own research, and especially when it comes to spiritual guides and intuitive medical readings and things like that. That we just take it each with a grain of salt, and we go in with an open mind, and who knows, we might just tap into something really, really, really valuable.
And that's why I do work with medical professionals I trust who can then verify, like, this is what I'm saying, go to this person. And then I always want to hear what they have to say, and they always say, yeah, you're right, or whatever.
You're right.
Things, or we can treat it, but yeah, I think it's important to work with a team.
So when you're talking to some guides in your practice, do you think that there's any sense that we bring into our lives an illness for a reason? I know we talked about, going from pain to purpose, but is there any reason to believe that we bring this into our lifetime like this in an unconscious way? Or do you think that it's actually, in the case of Lyme disease, that it's actually a case that we ran across a bad tick, and now it's just about healing that?
Yes and yes. So I would never tell someone that it was their fault that they got sick, or that anything like that. What I have encountered and found in my own life is that we are all susceptible to all sorts of things. And it might be a car accident, it might be Lyme disease, it might be an eating disorder, it might be depression, whatever. I feel that intuition is always present and that spirit is always directing us in very subtle ways about the things that we need to do to be authentic and to take care of ourselves and to take care of the people around us and the earth around us and everything else. So I believe that we're presented with this information, these choices, and if we respond to them, then we can kind of do what we're here to do. If we, so like, for example, if we get a cold, right? And we had been hearing, I need to slow down. I've been doing too much at work. I've been, not standing up for whatever all the stuff is that we hear from our intuition all the time. If we push that down and ignore it, then I don't think that our bodies, spirit, whatever, really have a lot of choices other than to get our attention in other ways. So I think it starts from subtle things. You get a cold. If you still do not respond to that and don't take care of yourself, then you get something more serious. And I call it the feather and the sledgehammer effect, in that you can get brushed by a feather and listen and pay attention, or it may take a sledgehammer that we need to be hit over the head with to then get us to change our life or take care of ourselves or leave that nasty relationship or all number of things. And I think I certainly need a sledgehammer sometimes. I think we all do, so I think that our bodies and spirit use symptoms and events in our life to get our attention, and then we have to make changes. It's always fascinating to me why certain people get certain things. I know the work I do is a little weird, but in my case, a lot of the things that I have, I feel like a guinea pig, because the more I learn about them, the more I'm able to help my clients with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe someone gets Lyme or something because they're going to heal, and then they know some other people around them that they can help them heal. I mean, there's so many possibilities, and there's some things I'm like, why did that happen? I have no idea. It's really annoying, but that's my take on it.
I think that's accurate. I think that a lot of times I talk to people with Lyme disease and other chronic illness, and it's really true. I mean, they are type A. They go. They've spent their whole lives doing this. They're athletes. They're high level, high producing, professionals, and they really just they slam into a wall.
Right.
And so this is all part of it. This is all part of the journey, but really it's almost impossible. I think it took me the better part of 1 year and actually 2 separate doctors telling me, you have to stop. You just stop everything that you're doing, because I just couldn't accept it, couldn't wrap my brain around it. So I think it's really important to know that, that it is all for a purpose. And we do have to actually, when we do stop and we do have the peace and quiet, to then go a step further and actually ask, not only, okay, I'm going to stop and just be peaceful, but ask, what really is my body trying to tell me?
Exactly.
Where is it sticking in my body? What is that? Yeah.
And even childhood illness, which is absolutely horrible, and no one, no child does anything to get themselves sick or anything like that. I've noticed, in so many families that it really affects the whole family. And maybe that illness, that child was here to help their parents go on and help lots of other people, or write a book, or start a foundation, or you know what I mean? Like we really don't know all the time what it's about.
Yeah.
And that's where, connecting to your illness and intuition and stuff can help give you some of those answers.
Yeah. And everybody out there who's listening, we have a lot of time on our hands. So you might as well use it to explore all sorts of different ways to heal. So let's talk a little bit about the dark days, because I know with Lyme disease and other tick-borne illness and chronic illness, you're in bed a lot. And sometimes you just don't have the wherewithal to think positively. What would be your advice to us and what we should do when we can't really hear or tune into our guides?
Um, my book gives some pretty specific examples of ways that I learned to talk to my intuition. And these things actually saved my life. Um, and I encourage people to not only talk to their intuition using these techniques, but to also have a dialogue with your body and with the illness. And I say the illness because when I found out that I had Lyme, I decided I wasn't going to use the word my attached to it. I was going to try to avoid saying the word Lyme at all, if I could. I didn't want to be so taken over by fear that became my whole identity. I was a person who happened to have something, but that wasn't who I am, who I was. And I think I talked to the Lyme and basically was like, why are you here? What do you want me to know? How do and I learned a whole mess of stuff, including having it help me heal and all. But I think that it's really important to know that you're a person separate from a diagnosis, and to still do as much as you can to make yourself happy, and try to engage in other activities, and not it's very easy to let that stuff consume you, especially with social media. It's all over the place. And I don't think that it's particularly healing to just be absorbed in that fear all day and every day.
Yeah. It can really become so triggering. You're in fight or flight for, that's how you're living your life. If you're doing that. So I think it's really hard when you're just lying there in bed. You can't really physically move as well as you would like to. Yes, of course, you're on your phone Googling every symptom that you might run across, especially if you're in the undiagnosed phase. So
Yes.
there's a lot of fear that can pulse through our veins. And I want to reiterate that fact that we don't need to be run by fear. We all know that people have survived Lyme disease. We all know that people heal from it every day. We just need to hold that hope and that light very, very bright, and not, I tell people a lot of times, watch a funny movie, read a trashy novel, do whatever it takes to get your mind off of this thing that you're hyper focused on and your body's demanding your attention. But you also have to take a lot of, breaks. It's that in and of itself is such a big part of fatigue in general.
It really is.
Fatigue.
And even I think that self-care in every way is so important during this, because I meet so many people who, whether it's Lyme or whatever, before they got sick, they didn't feel like they had the right to stand up for themselves, or to say no, or to ask for help, or to, let other people take care of their own messes, or get into a better job or relationship, whatever the thing is. And then when they got sick, they were like, oh, I have an excuse now. I can say no and say, I don't feel good. I don't want to go there. Or I can't do that because I don't feel good. And I always bring up the fact that you didn't need an excuse. You could have been saying no or yes or anything the entire time. You didn't need having this illness to, call attention to the fact that you needed something, or,
Yeah. I could see how your sessions would resonate with people on every level of healing. First and foremost, we talk about the fear factor and the beginning stages and the acute stages, and what our body really trying to tune in and help our bodies. But then I believe as we go through our healing journey and we sort of are coming out of it and came out of it, it would be helpful to reflect back and understand what it's all about.
Definitely. And that, during my sessions, we accomplish a lot, and it really is a physical, emotional, and spiritual time, and we talk about all kinds of root causes for problems and strengths. How can you use all of these things to be stronger and happier and healthier, and what are some concrete steps you can take? And it's really, really comprehensive. And I teach people how to connect intuition, and that's really important to me, is to look at the whole person and come at people from where they're at, what they need.
So I understand your book is a roadmap and a guide map to healing intuitively. But what could people expect from a session with you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I create the 4-page report, and it's divided into the chakras, which are energy centers. And it's basically like, in this part of the body, this is involved, and kind of go down the whole entire body. And so I point out any kinds of symptoms that I'm picking up. I point out any events in their life. So it could be trauma, it could be childhood experiences, relationships that they're in, career, so many things. Anything that is impacting their life, either for positively or negatively, and how those things can be contributing to some of the struggles that they're having, as well as things that they want to do in terms of moving forward and learning more about themselves and, life purpose and things. So we get very, very, very specific and personal. And we talk about concrete things people can do to heal and to move forward, because it's really important to me that people come away with a plan. And it's not going to be like a complete cover every single thing, but if these are some things that you can do physically, these are some people that you can hook up with. Emotionally, what are some of your needs and goals, and how can you start to take steps towards those things? How can you start listening to your intuition and have it help guide you? So it's really very client-centered. It's all from my guides the entire time. So they get the information from the report, and then we talk for an hour. And then I also send the intuitive painting. And
I love this part of your session. So tell us about that.
So that's super fun. I wanted something that could go even deeper than words. And symbolism is really a universal language, and you don't need to be able to communicate in words when you're symbols, and the symbols are everywhere. They've been throughout history and art and religion and all kinds of things. So having my art background, I wanted to be able to get information from my guides that was kind of a very pure download. And like, words I can mess with, and I've learned just to let whatever comes through, be there. But words I can kind of mess with as a human, and I try not to. But with the symbols and the colors and whether it's a person or an animal or plant or whatever, it's really just pure information. And I am able to interpret, what my guides are trying to tell me for the person, through those symbols. And sometimes it supports what's in the report already. So sometimes it's, a little bit of like, okay, yeah, I'm right, yay. And other times it points things out that I didn't put in the report. For example, I'm very careful about what I write, because I want to be courteous of feelings and all that. So if I pick up sexual abuse, for example, I will put something like trauma, whatever, but it often shows up as a red area in the pelvis or around the pelvis, or it'll come up with sort of like swirling energy in that area, or, so it's, it can be a softer way of delivering information, if you will. And people really, really, really like them. At first I was like, this looks like a fabric, but people love them, and they're really fun.
Yes, I've seen people say, "Oh, I'm going to frame this," and
yes.
it's sort of it's also probably a good reminder to have something like that up in your home, or someplace where you could easily access it, and just remind yourself where you've been, where you're going, what to work on a daily
Definitely.
basis. So a session with you is sort of like a psychic session
Mhm.
in that it's not like, I mean, or you tell me,
Yeah, no,
are they mostly finished after one session, or do they come back every so often? What's the typical patient?
it really depends. Sometimes, I mean, people said it's like a year of therapy in an hour, which is a huge compliment. We can accomplish a lot in that session. So people usually, start from there, see how much we work on. It's a start. So they start working on things. And then quite often they will make follow-up appointments with me to go deeper into some of the areas that they need to work on. I really encourage them to use their intuition and to be strong and to, I don't want people relying on me thinking that they can't do things without me. Like that's not healthy at all, So I don't want that. But I'm more than happy to be there to make more suggestions, to see what my guides, have to say about the progress they've made so far and going deeper into things, because a lot of people have a lot of different issues and an hour isn't enough time. But so it's a little bit of like half and half. Most people do make follow-ups. Sometimes they make them a month after, sometimes they make them 6 months, sometimes a year. It kind of depends on the person and how much progress they're able to make on their own.
And so when you're having a session with somebody, do you do it via Zoom type, like
Yeah,
this?
typically, yeah, it's FaceTime or Skype or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then do they close their eyes? Do they lie down? Or is it more of a conversation? And also, do they need to be somewhat spiritual themselves?
They don't need to be spiritual at all. It's definitely a conversation. They don't do anything to prepare. I just have their name and age and I go from there. So they don't have to do anything. I do send the report and painting usually a day or two ahead so that they can go over it and develop questions and, see how they feel about it and all that kind of thing. But no, it's very much a conversation. Some of the times what's in the report, I'm not sure what it means either. So it's really important that we talk about it together. And sometimes it's for people that are in spirit or people that they know, or oftentimes it's stuff in their past. And I kind of get an indication, like sometimes the information is louder than other times. And that's often my signal that this is a past situation that the guides are bringing up because it's still impacting them now. And sometimes it's symbolic. And, sometimes it's like they only give me a few words and then I have to say to the client, like, this is what I heard. What does this mean for you? And how can we, work through this and get the messages so we can use them?
So you're saying, so do you do the painting beforehand?
Yeah, the report and the painting are both done before.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
so you have their name, you have a patient's name and age,
Mhm.
and then you just sit and you do your thing and you work with art and you channel the entities and the guides and all that. And then you do the meeting with this person and you explain what came to you with all of
Right.
that.
Right. Yeah. I send the report and painting before we talk or meet or anything else. So they have, like, I can't bullshit this. It's there. Which is important to me. So, and then we get a ton more information when we talk too. But yeah, it's a little weird, or well, it's a lot
No,
weird.
I think that's even better, actually. I thought you were doing it sort of at the same time
No.
as you're talking and feeling and all that. Okay, so it's really just a conversation and it's like, hey, here's what you need to pay attention to, here's why it's happening, here's how you can help yourself. I mean, those kind
Yeah,
of
and people asking questions. They have. I want them to do that. I want them to be clear, and I want to know what's important to them to talk about. I start, even though I send like 4 pages of information and stuff, I always start the session by saying, is there anything that you want to make sure that we talk about today? Because it's about them.
Oh, that is incredible. That is so incredible. Before I let you go, I want to ask you, are our guides, do you think that our guides are the same throughout our life, or do you think they change, or what's your
That's a really cool question.
feeling on that?
I believe that I have had the same central ones from the beginning. When I first started talking to my intuition, I started by talking to God, and God being our source, having nothing to do with religion, but just God being a loving source. And then the more I did that, the more I realized that I was kind of seeing in my head these same figures and getting the same voices. And I realized I had been hearing them from the time I was very young. So, I think that they can be added to, certainly my grandparents, when they were here, they were my guides, and then they passed, and they're my guides now from there. So, I tend to think that we can certainly add them at any time. But I think they stay with us.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Do you have any parting thoughts to Lyme warriors and people out there that are dealing with chronic illness? Can you just give some parting words to them?
One of the things I want to say is, I know it's scary and you're angry and been through a lot of people oftentimes, and you don't want to get your hopes up and crash down again. And that's all really, really normal. Try to keep up hope, don't give up, and your body better than most doctors do. So if you're not getting diagnoses, if you're not getting help, look for other people, look for other alternatives. What I have learned is the way that I healed, which is my stories in my book. I think we're all very different. And every case of Lyme is different. Every case of chronic illness, no matter what it is, it's different. And so we can take a piece of everybody's story and try things out. And what worked for me isn't 100% what's going to work for somebody else. And that's why sometimes I'll be on, social media or something, and people be like, "How did you heal?" And I'm like, it's social, emotional, and spiritual. And I can give you tons of information, but you may have to make this your own too, depending on what's available to you. So don't give up, and keep looking, and don't ever feel like you can't heal. I don't believe it just goes into remission. I think I've seen it. I've healed. So try to love yourself as much as you can in the state that you're in. Yeah, we can still be purposeful humans and love and be loved, even if we aren't feeling well.
Yeah, that's so important. Our sense of confidence certainly takes a toll throughout this whole thing. So I think it's important to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And your words have I can already feel that they're already healing people out there. And to anyone who is open enough to listening to this, I would encourage you to get Katie Beecher's book, Heal from Within. And Katie, tell us where else we can find you.
So my website is the easiest. It's Katie Beecher, KatieBeecher, katiebeecher.com. My social media is on there. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. You can get the book pretty much anywhere. It's available in all different media. You can get it on audio. A lot of people, if they get audio, also get the book because there's a lot of charts and all kinds of things in there. But it's available everywhere. And if you email me or write to me on Instagram or Facebook, whatever, I'm more than happy to write back. And I really like hearing from people.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Everybody run out and get this book. I think it would be really cool as well to hear it on audio as you read along and make notes and look at her charts and everything, because it's just such an insight to why you're here and what you're dealing with. And it's a practical guide map. So I encourage everybody to read it and to give you a call and maybe, who knows, schedule a session with you. Thanks again, Katie. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.